Howdy, I'm Chase Amante. Today I'll be talking with girls chase coach and day game expert Hector Castillo. Hector, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing awesome. So now we're going to talk about day game today. And the reason we're talking about it is you've got a new day game course that we're about to premiere. So that course is called Meet Girls Everywhere. But before we talk about that, let's talk a little about how you got into day game and what your experience has been like teaching it. So as I recollect, you were already doing some day game here and there when I first got to know you. However, at the time, you primarily focused on social circle and party game. So that was your bread and butter for a long time, right?
Yeah, so I was in university. Naturally, a lot of my game was at frat parties and college parties. But when I had a bad breakup in the summer of 2013, it's ancient history now, I went to Sweden and decided to just see how big the world was and kind of lose my depression over this one girl thinking she's my whole world. And then when I went to Sweden, I had this idea to just talk to girls during the day. I hadn't actually like formally known it as day game yet. And I had a great experience in the airport where I kissed a girl in the airport on the way to Sweden. And then when I got to Sweden, I was just walking up to girls and saying, "Hey, is there somewhere nice to eat around here?" And then they tell me and I'd say, "You want to go with me?" Uh, didn't work out that great because I was obviously missing some steps in between. But that was my first kind of theory crafting on day game. And then I found Girls Chase actually as one of the places I was looking up on the internet on how to talk to girls during the day. So I actually started to learn my day game beginner's knowledge from you guys.
And so then you went back and you were still doing mostly social circle and not doing too much day game at first for a while, right? While you're in school.
Yeah, it was a small campus, so I was a bit hesitant to do it there because when I was in Europe, it was just okay, just approach as many girls as possible. So I got back and started doing mostly social circle, but then I guess I just, you know, got some courage and I started doing a pretty high volume day game on my small college campus, and surprisingly, it went very well.
Hmm. So were you approaching girls that you didn't know at all, or were they women that you had seen in class, or you'd seen them around before, you had some familiarity with them? How did that work on a small college campus?
A mix of both. Some girls, maybe they were in my class, but I hadn't really talked to them. Girls who maybe I had seen around before and been interested in. If it was a girl I already knew, I'd obviously just go up and say, "Hey, how are you?" But it was primarily just girls I'd seen around and always wanted to talk to, but never found myself in a social circle or party situation to bring them into my life. So I kind of made it happen.
Hmm. So you'd go up, you'd approach them, and then you'd set up. Were you setting up dates, or were you inviting them to come to like college parties, get-togethers?
Yeah. So one mistake that I kind of made with the college campus is I did too much of a date model and I was taking girls on dates. It was good practice for the real world, so I'm glad I did it. But I think it was too formal for I should have been meeting them during the day, then texting them and then get them to just come over or come to college parties. But like I said, it was good practice for how you're going to do it in the real world, where you don't have that familiarity of they kind of know what fraternity you're in or what groups of friends you have, so they're willing to come straight over. You have to build up that familiarity over a date. But I was doing primarily meeting them, texting them, and then going to get coffee or dinner with them.
I think I kind of remember that. You were taking them on these formal dates, and we're saying, in college, you just got to hang out. Like, come on
Yeah,
over, let's hang out, or kick
hang
back.
out. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
So
I
then
was
you did
mismatching
shift
it.
over to more doing more hangouts, right? Less the formal dates. Did you try that out after a while?
Yeah, I stopped, especially once I started getting it's like the thing that made me get more of a reputation wasn't so much part of it was going after so many girls, but I think it was the fact that I was taking them on dates. So it seemed like I was trying to date so many girls, which maybe seems even more scummy than just, trying to have sex with them,
Yeah,
because you're trying to pretend to
getting their
be like a
hopes up a little
boyfriend.
bit. oh, I get to be his girlfriend.
Exactly. So I started just hanging out more and not doing as many dates, and it seemed to do better.
So that was helping you keep less of a scummy playboy reputation, even though it was a smaller
A little bit.
campus.
A little bit. It was pretty much already done by that point, but yeah, it helped a little bit.
Past the point of no return.
Yeah.
Okay. So after school, so social circle was not quite as easy, like you said. So you switched over, I think you switched over more to nightlife insider games. You're working at a nightclub for contacts and going to other clubs, especially ones where you knew the staff. So you also started doing more day game at that point too. But you were already doing it on college campus as well. So what would you say the split was for you right after school? Was it maybe like 60-40 club game, day game, or was it even more skewed than that at first? Or how did it break down?
I would say it became more of a, I think 60% day game, 40% nightclub, because I was only at the club 3 nights a week working. Occasionally you'd go out, with people from the industry during the week. But mostly it was day game, I'd say. So it became not heavily favored, but definitely favored on the side of day game. And that's when my volume just dramatically increased. And it was like my test of, okay, I got laid a bunch from social circle, but am I really good with girls? Because even at the point I was writing articles, but I was really not doubtful of my skills, but hard on myself. And I said, okay, I got all that from social circle, but maybe it's just because, I built up a status. Can I get a high volume of girls who don't, maybe I made them during the day, but then they heard about me. Oh, that was cheating. It has to be completely 100%. They literally have no idea who I am and have never met anyone who's met me, and just totally two strangers meeting each other, and they still want to date me and go to bed with me. But it was heavily favored in day game's favor, and that's when my skills like went completely up.
So you've also used dating apps and played around with online game a bit, right? So did you ever have success with that, or was that largely a waste of time?
I had a fair amount of success with it. In recent years, it kind of went down, honestly. Um, I would say, when I was in college or in California, maybe it's just the trend of Tinder in general, just less volume and less quality. But
Well, when we look at the statistics over the years, very consistently year over year, there's more and more men on Tinder. The proportion of men, I think in 2015 it was like almost 50-50 men and women. But then each year it got worse and worse. In 2018 and 2019, it was 80% men. It got a little bit better during the lockdowns because women had nowhere else to go. And it was like 75% men,
uh
25% women. But it's probably going back towards 80% men once again.
then
You know,
that makes sense.
4 out of 5 people on there are men.
Yeah, that makes sense because I definitely saw like the number of matches I was getting go down dramatically. And it could be I'm an
It
ugly
makes it like I got it,
motherfucker.
ugly, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like I was like, I don't think I've changed. I didn't get like fat. I didn't, like lose half my face. Like there wasn't anything I could really point to. So I think in my lifetime, let's just I'd say I've gotten 20 to 30 girls over like Tinder, Bumble, whatever, like sex, and then hookups. Probably a dozen or a couple dozen more than that, or dates, probably 100. Who knows? So I've gotten a fair amount of volume from it. I would say the quality wasn't as good as day game, obviously. The only people I know now who kill it on dating apps and get quality women, like I know guys who get dates, but maybe they're not the best. Is my friend who looks like a Greek god, like literally the best physique, better than even like the influencers that you see on Instagram. Now he'll match with 90% of the women he swipes right on. That's the only solid Tindering I see, but from my standards, in terms of like you're getting high quality girls and a volume of it.
Interesting. So you've kind of covered the gamut here. So you got social circle, you got nightclub, you've got day game, you've got apps, you've done it all. So I think that you and I would both agree that day game is clearly the best for meeting high volumes of high quality women. So it's also the lowest competition method out there. Very few men do it. So would you agree that day game is overall the best, most straightforward way to meet the best looking girls that you're going to get? And if so, then why do so few men do it?
I don't think it's even like a competition. It's been the best. It's always will be the best. It's the old-fashioned way, and usually with anything in the world, if you do it the old-fashioned way, you'll usually get better results. When you try to cut corners using technology, as with dating apps, or using crutches like friends, you tend to get more. They seem easier, but it's a lot of false flags. With day game, there's not false flags. Like she either likes you or she doesn't, because she doesn't feel any social pressure to be nice to you as she might at a party with friends, and she has to be nice to people who are in her friend groups. Or she may even like feel the need to be flirty, and then you're getting the wrong idea. Or with dating apps, you're sitting there swiping, and it might feel good to get a match, but then half the girls you match with don't respond. Nightclub game, there's drunk douchebags, and you might drink too much, or you might be nervous, or you might not know anyone. The music's loud. None of that exists in day game. Like, it's just you and how many girls you could possibly run into, and there's very little interference with them. At the nightclub, the girls might see you get rejected a few times. In day game, like, unless you're like, you approach one girl and then the girl right behind her, you go and approach her. But I've even had that and went okay. Like, you have it's like the Wild West of dating, basically. And there's no rules, and you can pretty much do whatever you want and talk to as many girls as you want. And there's no limit. Like, you can only approach the girls at the club because, well, they chose to go to the club. Well, girls don't choose like to go outside. They have to for work or to go get groceries or to go to the gym. They literally do have to go outside. So they're there and you can go approach them. So there's literally no limit on the quality. You're not limited by your pictures. The only limitation is your willingness to go do it, which is why so many guys don't do it, because maybe they just think it's weird, which is a strange thought. Like, oh, it's okay to approach a girl at this box that has music and everyone's drunk, because that's what a bar is, just a big box of drunk people. But it's strange to go talk to a girl who's in a pretty dress, going to get groceries. I don't know why it seems strange. To me, it never really seemed strange. Like, it just was something I didn't really think of. I was just nervous to do it, but I never thought it was a strange thing to do. So I'd say it's probably a split. Either people just think that it can't happen, like girls are somehow vampires and during the day they're not sexual, or they're just afraid to do it. It's probably a 50-50 split on it's weird or I'm just nervous.
So was it harder for you to start doing day game too? It sounds like for you it was just as soon as you had the idea, it was like,
Yeah,
there's an idea.
it was pretty easy.
Just throw yourself into it as soon as you thought of that idea, or did you have to work yourself up to it? And how did that go?
So I had been kind of doing it since my teenage years. Now, when I say that, I don't mean like I was a day gamer, but I'd done it a few times. I remember I would go to spend summers on Nantucket, and I was like, 15, 16. I didn't have anything to do because my dad was, painting houses and working. And I would walk around the town and I would see girls my age just going around in groups, and having fun and being social. And I realized, I'm going to be alone. I didn't really know anyone. So I remember one time I got a huge approach invitation because I was sitting by the pier and there's these group of girls, and this one girl just says out loud, "I wonder if that guy's going to come talk to us." And she's like looking my way. I was like, okay, that's like an approach invitation, right? If there is one in the world. So I was like, okay. And I walked up and, started talking to them. Or I remember talking to some girls outside the movie theater waiting to get into a movie. Or at night walking around talking to girls. So it's technically not day game, but day game's anything that you do. It's not like once the sun goes down, it's like, oh no, it's not day game.
Transform.
Yeah, exactly. Silent Hill, the bell rings. So I had kind of had some experience just talking to girls in public that you don't know, basically. No club environment because I was too young. So I think I felt an affinity for it. And like you said, yeah, once I got the idea for it when I went to Europe, because it was just a natural conclusion. I don't know any of these people in Europe. I don't know a single person here in Sweden. I could go to the clubs, but I don't want to be limited to 3 days a week. So I guess I have to talk to girls during the day. And yeah, it came pretty easy for me, honestly.
So at this point, you've been coaching students on all kinds of game for I don't know how many years now. Uh, so you started out helping guys on the forum, and then we brought you on the team doing phone coaching, and you became our most popular phone coach by far. And then you started doing infields with guys who flew out to see you or flew you out to meet them and run boot camps where you take them around in person and get them meeting girls.
Mhm.
So is it different to work with guys in these different training mediums?
Yeah, the best is obviously in person. Nothing's ever going to beat that. Just like nothing's ever going to beat the old-fashioned way, right? The old-fashioned way is always the best. Someone right there with you, looking at you and seeing you work.
Sure.
Um, but I've been surprised by how good phone coaching can be because when you've seen enough, someone can tell you a story and you go, there's something more here that he's not telling me. Like, not that he's like hiding it, but he just doesn't know what's important in the story. And then you ask, okay, can you tell me a little bit more about your actual conversation? 'Cause some guys would be like, yeah, we went on a date and it was cool. I'm just like, okay, tell me a little bit more, like what happened? And then he'll say, oh yeah, she said this. And I'm like, why didn't you tell me this one thing that she said? It's super important. He's like, really? And I'm like, yeah, that was the moment where she was, you know, like just because she ordered beer and not whiskey and you're kind of more of like a fancy guy, you judged her. Because he says, yeah, I kind of judged her for drinking beer. And I'm like, you don't think she maybe saw that? And he's like, yeah, you're right. She might have. I'm like, yeah, she read it on your face. And after that point, didn't the date change? Yeah, it kind of got weird. There you go. That was where the date kind of went downhill. So phone coaching can be surprisingly effective once you get the details. Forums were really nice too because that's what forced guys to write details. So they all have their strengths. Um, the obvious best is in person, but they all can work. I mean, because you taught me so much through forums. Like you would write me like pages, and I would just. It would sometimes take me so long. Like I remember one lesson you gave me like 2 years before, and then I learned it, and I was like, I've heard this before, and I knew where it was, and I found like the post that you had said it. I was like, Chase told me this 3 years ago, and finally I get it. So forums have the strength of being there for years to come. Phone coaching is as close you can get to as in person, but sometimes people lack the full story. And then in person, that's obviously the best. But you can't go on the date with him. That's the one weakness. Maybe you could sit behind them and pretend you don't know them. But that seems a bit, well, it's not creepy, but it would definitely be interesting. And you could just like give hand signals on what to do. But yeah, they all work. They're all very effective, but they have their weaknesses.
Believe it or not, I've done it a few times where I took guys and I sat along on the date with them.
Uh-huh.
It doesn't seem to hurt things any, and the girls are totally fine with it. There's like a little secret to it where you got to be like a little bit social, and then you got to just hang back and just kind of chill out by yourself, having your drink, and interject maybe once every 15 to 20 minutes so it doesn't start to feel weird. But you just let the two of them vibe, and it's basically just when I've done it's usually been with guys who are having trouble pulling,
Okay.
and I've said, okay, I'm going to sit along on the date with you, and then when it comes time for you to pull, I'm going to give you a sign, and then I want you to pull her. So you kick the guy's foot, or you give him a little verbal sign, and he's
Uh-huh.
like, oh. And then later he's like, how did you know that it was time to pull her? And you can train the guy up a lot faster because a lot of times guys aren't recognizing this sign. They might be fine with everything else. But yeah, it's not a conventional infield strategy.
What was the story that you gave the girl? You were just a friend tagging along?
Well, sometimes I've done it with guys I took out for infields into nightclubs, in which case I had the guy go approach the girl, and then when it was going well, I'd walk up and I'd say, "Hey, why don't you tell her that we're gonna go out and get some drinks at a diner, or go out and get a little food," and then I'd just go with them, and then he would introduce me as my friend, and then I'd just kind of be chilling out and watch them as they talked.
Mm-hmm.
And then either I'd have him pull her, or when it seemed pretty clear, I'd tell her, "Hey, I'm going to get ready to take off. You two should head out and go have a nightcap," and just kind of seat it for them. And then I'd head off, and I'd let the student pull. Or sometimes I've had guys that I'd have them set up the date where, and they would just tell the girl, "Hey, I'm going out to get drinks with my friend. You should come along." And then it would just be the three of us showing up there, and then I'm just chilling out and giving them a few hints here and there, or jumping in if I needed to keep things moving.
Mm-hmm.
But it's basically either that way, where we're pulling them from the club, or we're set up in advance that he's coming out for drinks, and then inviting her to join us.
I like it.
So, let's see. How many of the guys that you've trained focus on social circle versus night game versus apps versus day game, would you say? And do you get guys to switch what kind of game they're running, or are most students pretty set in what they're going to do?
As soon as you ask that question, there's one client that it's a running joke between us that, I mean, you can try your best to inspire people, but he never does day game. But maybe after this girl that he's dating that he's starting to not like so much, he'll be finally convinced, because she's beautiful and like literally like so cool, but she's a little bit annoying. And he met her over Tinder. And I'm like, man, if this doesn't work out, I mean, I hope it does, but if it doesn't work out, please finally do day game. But he laughs every time. I'm like, can you finally do an approach this week? But he has so much success over dating apps that he slept with like, I don't know, like 15 girls over the past couple of years, just from dating apps, maybe even more. I think actually like more like 20, 30. But he's pretty hard set. It's hard to convince guys. I finally got one client who now he's on his second or third course with me, over a couple years period, and he's doing day game now. Whereas he was 100% social circle and bar game, because they kind of go together. Those are the only converts I've had. The other guys were guys who I immediately got them straight into day game. The guys who do day game do everything. The guys who don't do day game don't always do day game, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. That's the thing that I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
So, when I started out just doing clubs, and it was so hard for me to get myself to do day game. I would go out almost every weekend. I'd go out to like I was living in DC at the time. I'd go to Georgetown. There's all these pretty girls walking around. I would say, okay, this weekend I'm going to start doing some day game approaches. And I just couldn't get over the approach anxiety. And, after a few hours walking around, I'd be like, okay, tonight I'm just going to go to the club, and I'll get my approaches in then. And versus the guy that I learned from started out just doing nothing but day game. And after that, once he got good at day game, he could do anything. Same thing. And it's, I think there's a thing where, day game, there's this intimidation factor where obviously I would say it probably didn't affect you quite as much, but for a lot of guys, you're going out in public and you're like, wow, I'm the only guy that's doing this. Everyone's going to be looking at me. I got to walk up to this girl and people are going to notice I'm going up talking to a stranger. It looks so weird. It's not what people do. And there's this social pressure there where people are worried about what are other people going to think.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to really be able to let go of caring what other people think. Or you got to be able to find some nice little quiet streets and still get some foot traffic with pretty girls where you can meet someone and there's not a lot of other people standing around watching you while you talk to her. And I think for a lot of guys, they look at it, and especially if guys like that, if he's already got success on a dating app, or he's already got success in social circle or a nightclub, then it's even harder for him to transition into that, because he's got this area where he's comfortable, he's secure, and here's this other area that feels scary and there's intimidating. So it's hard to make that jump. And for me, I finally was able to get myself to do it when I started doing it when I was on travel. I'd be in some totally alien city and be like, okay, nobody knows me at all, so I can go make up these approaches. And if everybody watches me and thinks I'm a weirdo, it doesn't matter because I'm going to be out of here in 2 days anyway. So no big deal. And you start doing it, and immediately you're making street stops, and you're like, wow, I'm amazed at how women are responding. Like this is going a lot better than I thought. Even the rejections are not that bad. And then when they respond well, it's like, this girl's beautiful. Like if I was meeting her in a club, it would take me a bunch of approaches on girls like that to meet a girl like this in a club and have it go this well. So you start doing day game, and you're like, this is something different from what anything else that I've done.
Mhm.
But yeah, I can understand why you would see with guys, especially once they have some success in one area, they're going to have a lot of resistance to transitioning to something else.
Yeah, it's just a effort thing. They just it's maybe it's an ego thing. Like I've already gotten good at this. I don't want to feel like a newbie again.
Yeah, definitely. You got one where you're feeling comfortable, and now you got to go out and get rejections like some newbie retard beginner
Yeah, exactly.
idiot. So can you tell me about one of your day game students and where he started out at, and what it was like for him learning to day game, and what sorts of results you got?
Who's the best? Probably the best example. This guy in Portugal. It's a Chinese guy actually, but he was born and raised in Portugal, and he was doing some dating apps, but then started doing some day game. I think it was at my behest where I started him off it, or maybe he had been trying it for a little bit. I think I started him on it, yeah. So he was one of those students where you love this kind of student because he'll just do it. He'll approach so many girls with like he feels the nervousness, and I felt the nervousness too, like that feeling of I'm the only guy doing this. It's not that I didn't feel it, it's that I knew the pain of that was worth whatever I could get. So he saw it that way, it seems, as well. Maybe it helped that he was younger, so he was more easily like molded. But I think he just has that personality. So he went from dating apps and a little bit of social circle to day gaming. So I got to got to see from the very beginning his transformation. So he started doing, let's say, 15, 20 approaches a week. Then he was getting into the area where like we wouldn't talk for a few months because maybe we've done like 3 courses now. So after our first course, he'd come back to me a couple months later. He's like, I've done like 500 approaches, and these are the things I'm seeing, and I'm not seeing these results here, but I'm seeing these results here. So he was getting numbers and he was getting dates, but he was having trouble getting sex. It's like, okay, that's not so much a function of your day game, that's your dating skills. But then he ran into a problem once he started hitting the intermediate level where he was getting a bunch of numbers, but then not getting texts. And I was like, okay, that's a problem with your approaching. Tell me more about it. Then I realized, oh, he got too good. Obviously not too good, but that's the way of thinking about it. Exactly. He's coming across too smooth. So I was like, how do you, and that was kind of how I started to develop from him, teaching him the raw approaching that I have in the course, because I had the same exact problem where girls were calling me, oh, you're Rico Suave, you're so smooth. But then they wouldn't, put their mouth on my pee-pee. And it's like, okay, you think I'm so smooth, but then you're not willing to go home with me or go on a date with me. So I'm obviously not that smooth, right? So I'm too smooth. So I formulated, I was like, what do I do? Like, do I have to change what I say? Do I have to, approach less girls so I don't have this energy of a guy who's doing this a lot? And then I'm not sure if I manufactured it or maybe I was just tired one day and I'm just like, hey, and I started doing a more sincere, not so polished approach. And then I was like, that worked really well. And I started applying it to everything. Like I stopped interacting with people in such a like, I know everything kind of, because a lot of people would give me crap about that, not only in day game, but in life. Like, yeah, you think you know it all. And I'm just like, but can I be confident in myself? Like, why everyone tells you to be confident, but then once you're confident, everyone hates you for being confident because they're not confident. And I'm like, I'm really not trying to be an asshole. I'm just confident in myself. Like, let me be that way, But then I started toning it down and adding more natural breaks to the way that I speak and more nervousness, and a little bit more humility and a little bit, I guess, humanity where I'm not so like trying to be perfect. And
So then you ended up with this raw approach that you have
yeah.
inside.
Raw, yeah. So I call it raw, opening, and I do raw closing as well. It sounds like raw dogging, but that's kind of the why I like that word.
That's the end goal.
Yeah, it's right. If you start with a raw open, you have a raw close, and then you have a raw dog.
No, we're just
And
kidding. You use condoms with this if you want to.
yes, yeah. Be safe, please. I don't want to be responsible for any leaky dicks. Okay, so the image in my mind is horrible. Okay, so basically, I told him how to do this. Long story short, I taught him this raw opening, and he had dramatically different results. He started getting more numbers, more dates, and I saw his progression from beginner to like intermediate, like more advanced level of day game. And he got to that. Maybe he did more work than he needed to, because I don't want guys to think you have to do 1,000 approaches. I mean, if you want to get good at anything, you're going to have to do it, a lot of times. But the whole point of me teaching them is to have them do enough work where obviously they're, approaching women, um, but you're going to make the jump in 20 approaches that you normally would do in 500.
So how's that student doing today? Is he doing pretty well?
He actually did a little bit too well. He got a really beautiful girl, started sleeping with her, and then the quarantine happened, and it kind of affected day game as an outlet. And he really liked her, and he started kind of being genuine with her, and maybe he gave her too much, because I could tell she was a little bit of one of those girls where they act really sweet and nice, but you can tell they're a little bit of a player. And he kind of got his heart broken. So maybe, he's overcoming that right now. I'm going to text him today, though, and I'm going to see how he's doing. But I know he's going to jump back because, some guys are watching this are like, oh, if I'm going to do day game and get my heart broken. Well, you can meet girls anywhere and still get your heart broken. It's not like because you met them with the sun out, all of a sudden, but you are going to meet higher quality girls and more beautiful girls, right? Because this is not a girl that you would probably get on a dating app. And so if higher quality girls cause more heartbreak, it's okay, because in the end you get a positive. But he's going to come back because of day game, because he's going to be able to iron out those sad emotions with approaches. That's the fastest way to get over a girl, is to, what's the old saying? Like, to get over one girl, you have to get in 10 girls' pants, right? That was like the old school pickup mentality. It's not 100% correct, but it's not the worst approach.
Yeah. What was that? It was a GFTO.
Yeah. Go fuck 10 other women.
Exactly.
But he's doing good. He's doing good. He's just going through a heartbreak. I've been through it. I know exactly what kind of heartbreak it is too. And once you get past this hump, you take like a quantum leap, because then you're no longer. The first problem is falling for the toxic girls, like the girls who are obviously like, promiscuous and kind of like players. Then the second step is meeting the girls who seem like they're not that, but they're just better at it. They're better at hiding it. And then once you can get past that, you kind of then you can find the truly high quality women who are actually genuinely good people.
Yeah, that's important. So I know you've got this course coming out, and you've got an entire deep method that covers absolutely everything. But could you give us one little thing that a guy could use if he's never day gamed before, that'll let him hit the ground running with it?
So for a newbie, the best thing for a guy to do is to work on his fundamentals 100%. So when I see newer guys approaching, their biggest problem is that they're so focused on like, I haven't done this before, and this is a new thing, that it still feels weird to me, and am I a weirdo, blah, blah, blah. And because they have these thoughts, just doing the approach and saying the words, giving a compliment, introducing yourself, asking her what she's up to, having conversation, and then asking her out. They just do the process, which is perfect. Like, it's better than not doing it, right? But what they fail to do, and it's kind of what I talk about in the mirror video that I sent out to the people on the newsletter, is they're not watching themselves as they talk. And the number one thing there is your vocal tonality. Right? You should pay attention to all the fundamentals, right? And I go into this in the course: the hand gestures, facial expressions, eye contact, body language, vocal tonality. But the number one thing is the vocal tonality. Everything else can be subpar, but if your voice is cool, because everything else can pass as just your personality. But your voice never, well, it'll always betray you. It's not that it's the one thing that will always betray you. Everything else can kind of just be, oh, he's just kind of eccentric, or maybe he's just kind of like a reserved guy. But your voice will give you away 100% of the time. So a newbie needs to focus on his voice. You need to be focusing on your enunciation, your volume, your cadence. Like, hey, I saw you over here, and I think you're really beautiful. Like, it's so wooden, right? But if he goes, hey, I saw you over here, and you look so pretty, and I wanted to come say hi. Everything else might be not the best. You might look a little bit nervous. You might, not be as animated as you should be. But if you just add in those basic intonations on "you're so beautiful" or "you're so beautiful," and it gives emotion to what you're saying, that one change, I promise you, and it sounds so simple, and that's the thing with the chorus, is that it's so simple that I'm like, is this too simple? But it's like I've broken it down to its constituent parts, and I promise you, if you just change if you have intonations, like, that's what I would say, just have intonations. Don't talk wooden. Like, speak how we're speaking in this interview. Like, I put a stress on that word, and then that makes you focus on that word. The same thing will happen when you're talking to her. Like, so what are you up to? Like, that little just uptone at the end that makes it feel like a question will have her respond better to what you're saying. And the compliment, 100%. The compliment, you need to nail it. If you nail that compliment, it's going to drastically change, because she needs to make that decision of like, okay, it's not normal for guys to come talk to me during the day. Usually they just catcall. That doesn't make it bad, but it's just a thing she's not used to. So if you make her feel comfortable with that first few words, excuse me, and you kind of do it with a tone like, I don't know, I think I kind of recognize you. Like, those vocal tonalities, they trigger things in your mind. They make you, like, what I tell guys is talk to her as if like she's someone that you think you recognize. And you can even do that to like give yourself an out. Like, if it doesn't go well, like she looks at you weird, you can be like, oh, sorry, I thought I recognized you. And it doesn't seem as weird. And all it takes is a vocal tonality. Or I tell them, treat it like she dropped something. So do the same voice for, excuse me, you dropped your purse over there. Obviously she didn't, but use that same tonality. Hey, you dropped your purse over there. Now turn it to like, hey, excuse me. Hey, excuse me, I saw you over there. Same tonality. And it'll make girls turn and be curious, because they're conditioned to at least give that a brief moment of attention. So you can kind of like hack their attention. And then when it comes to the compliment, they really pay attention to it when you stress it. If you say, yeah, you're beautiful. When girls say, I hear this a lot, that's what they mean. But when you say, you are beautiful, they don't hear that a lot. That's the big difference.
Yeah, that's great. And voice is so critical. And people, you're thinking about, what am I doing? What am I saying? But most people aren't thinking about, how does my voice sound when I'm speaking to other people? And even just when you look at scientific studies on it, they have this research where they find that there's just a study that just came out this year, and they found that as you improved the vocal quality and videos and media, then people believed that the speaker's IQ was higher, and as the vocal quality goes down, the IQ seems to be lower. And some other studies we've seen, if you have low quality video but high quality audio, people are much more convinced by the presentation. But if you have high quality video and low quality audio, people are a lot less convinced by the presentation. People put this, people can dress really nice, and they can say the nice things and present themselves in really great ways, but if the voice is not coming across correctly, it has a really an outsized impact. And when we did one date, we were talking about all these tonality things, and we had the voice module, and the same thing here. When you're approaching, the voice is a huge part of that first impression that you're making. So yeah, I think that's a great tip for any new guy that's starting out. Just focus on that, on how they're speaking. So for the guys who are a bit more intermediate, who maybe day gamed a little bit and possibly have gotten some phone numbers from it, maybe some dates, maybe they've hooked up with a girl here or there from it, can you give me something these guys will appreciate that'll help them make this occasional type of game they sometimes use, sometimes get results from, and turn it into a bread and butter font of new women for them, the way it is for guys who are good at it? So for guys who are a bit more intermediate, who maybe day gamed a little bit and possibly have gotten some phone numbers from it, maybe some dates, maybe they've hooked up with a girl here or there from it, can you give me something these guys will appreciate that'll help them make this occasional type of game they sometimes use, sometimes get results from, and turn it into a bread and butter font of new women for them, the way it is for guys who are good at it?
Okay, so now that they've gotten some approaches under their belt, and they're still rough around the edges, but they have done some work. They don't have approach anxiety as much. They know how to, run the process, talk to her, make conversation, ask her out. What they need to start doing is target selection, right? So this is what you learn with any skill. When you first start it, you do a lot of it. Then once you start getting better, you focus more on the quality of what you're doing. So we need quality approaches. So beyond just like, okay, well, I need to focus more. I need to like make every approach like an artistic approach, because maybe they still don't know what that looks like. It still seems too vague. What really, really changes your results once you're an intermediate is to get away from the mass approaching. This is actually what I did with the client that I talked about in Portugal. So he was doing too many approaches, right? So many. He was doing so many approaches. Like, I know there's a lot of pretty women out there. There's tons, right? You could find one around every corner. But he's probably talking to girls he's not that attracted to, actually. Right? So this is the problem with guys who are like too gung-ho. And this is my problem too. Like, I'd talk to girls who I weren't attracted to. But I would say, Hector, you're a pussy if you don't go talk to that girl just because she's a girl. Right? She's manageably attractive. Like, it's within the realm of possibility, but there's maybe something not quite there for me. But I'd still do it because if I don't, I'm a bitch. Okay. Don't approach girls you're not attracted to. In fact, you need to limit yourself to only 2 types of girls. Yes, this is great. So I loved when I did this because it took off so much pressure from myself too. Like, I didn't feel the requirement to go talk to girls. I had already proven myself, basically. So these guys have proven themselves. Your goal now is just results, right? So you need to do 2 things. 1, only approach girls who give approach invitations. So girls who give you that second and a half of a look rather than just one glance. Because one glance, let's say it's like a yellow light. Like, it's, you could go in, but you're not 100% sure. But if she looks for more than a second and a half, that's extended eye contact, right? She looks, boom. That extra half second makes a huge difference. Or she looks at you twice, right? 1 look can be forgiven. 2 cannot be forgotten. You cannot accidentally look at someone twice, right? Or like when they do they're looking around, like, I'm just looking at nothingness. And then just at the last second, you're the last thing that they look at after they do their like scan of the environment, right? Or the hover, where they're somewhere around you and then maybe you don't notice you, but if you do, this is 100%. But let's say they just move. Let's say you're waiting for the train. They're over there. Then somehow they find themselves closer to you. If you saw that she saw you before she did this, it's 100%. If she didn't, okay, maybe she's getting ready to go into the train. Maybe you're nearby the door. But still, she moved to be nearby you. Give it a try. Or like a girl's walking.
So you see one of these approach invitations, and that's the first thing. As soon as you see that, jump in. and go
Exactly.
talk.
Exactly. You know, there's I even make a list for guys. You know, I could go on for like an hour. I think I have like 15 of them. Some of them are really nuanced, but they still really work. So you'll have like a list that you can actually pull up on your phone when you're out approaching. I make it really, you know, nice and easy for you to see. But those are a few of them, right? Hovering, eye contact, um, or even if she's walking behind you and like speeds past you and then slows down. It's like, okay, oh, you were trying to put yourself nearby me so I could see you. Okay, cool. So if you see one of those, approach her and keep yourself only to those. The only exception to not taking an approach invitation, and some of them are going to be impossible, like she's across the street over there. There's no way for her to give you an approach invitation because she hasn't seen you yet, right? But let's say you see a girl across the street and you see her and she just she does it for you. Like it's not just a sexual thing. It's a butterflies in your stomach. My heart is pumping fast. Or you know, there's girls out there who like maybe they're not your 10, but for some reason like they're just so attractive. Like you know objectively like they're not a 10. Like I don't know, maybe they have a big nose or like a big chin. You used to make fun of me. Like I would like girls who have like bigger, but like that sounds. You're probably like, what? What do you mean big chins? I don't mean like a big, just like a more pronounced chin. Okay, but Chase would make fun of me and tell me I like Jay Leno girls. So she just has that look. You know, it's a different look. But for you, it's a thing. You know, for another guy, he'd be like, I don't know, she's like a 6, maybe a 7 at best. You know, but for you, she's like a solid, like she's pretty. You know, because you don't want to get into the 1 to 10 stuff too much. But she's like, oh, there's something about her. She just has that look. And usually it's a look that you've been with girls who have that look. And like I feel something for her. Okay, go approach her. Or it's that girl who is just out of this world, stunning and beautiful. And what's interesting about this is guys are going to go, wait, I'm an intermediate. I can't talk to these high quality girls yet. No, that's literally the most counterintuitive, opposite thinking you should have. The most beautiful women, and I remember this when I first started doing day game. I was in Sweden, so you know, tall, beautiful, blonde Swedish girls. I had the best interactions with the most beautiful women. And looking back now that I know what I know, I could have had sex. Like the most beautiful women. I remember I talked to this chick who was just like she like towered over me, and she was like a like done up really nice, dressed up really nice, and I was just you know like 21-year-old me dressing like a college kid. And I remember she was giving me signs out the wazoo, and I just never even asked her out. And she was gorgeous, like next level beautiful, like just oh. And she gave me the signs, but because my thinking was that, oh, I can't, she's a woman. Like, she's not a girl, she's a woman. Oh, I can't get her. No. If she's giving you the signs, they're there. It doesn't matter what insecurities or fears you have, the signs are there, it's there. It's a basic causal principle. So, the idea behind approaching girls who are super beautiful is this. My best interactions were with women who are the most beautiful. And there's 2 reasons behind it. One, because they're beautiful, and because they're beautiful, they're more probably confident in themselves. You know, everyone has insecurities and nervousnesses, but usually beautiful women are going to be the more confident ones. And so she's more comfortable with you approaching her in general because she's going to be able to handle herself because she's confident in herself. She doesn't think you're just approaching her because you know you're just a pussy to be inside of on Friday. Like she knows she's beautiful, so she knows you're approaching her for a good reason, and so she's going to handle it much better and receive it more warmly as long as it's sincere. But the second reason, and probably the more important one, is that when you speak to her, and when I talk about the vocal tonality, it's still a skill that it's really important. When you tell a girl that she's beautiful and you really feel she's beautiful, you usually don't even have to force it. You'll just naturally say, "Wow, you are gorgeous." Like it's almost as if like it's an admission of some higher truth. Like you're just gorgeous, and she hears that and she's like feels giddy because it's so genuine. And when you truly are attracted, or I guess there's 3 reasons now. If you're truly attracted to a woman, usually she's attracted to you, which sounds strange because it's like, okay, I look like the Hunchback of Notre Dame. Here's this gorgeous woman. Does that mean that gorgeous women are attracted to Hunchback of Notre Dame? Well, they made that movie for a reason. But, if you feel it, it's usually there. There's really no way for me to explain it other than that and for you to go prove it. So if you're an intermediate guy, only approach girls who are absolutely gorgeous and beautiful, or girls who give you approach invitations. You'll cut down on your work, you'll improve your consistency, and you'll get results with beautiful women, which will drastically change the way that you look at dating.
That's great. So we're running a little short on time, but I still have a few things I want to ask you.
Okay.
We talked about dating apps a little bit before, and there have been some trends in dating recently. I don't know if you've seen the stats, but we've had this trend over the past, 5 years, where we have seen progressively fewer and fewer men dating. And the last numbers I saw for were 2018, and they found that 28% of single men from age 18 to 30 had not had sex in the past year. And the highest number ever before 2018 was 18%, and usually it's closer to like 10%. But this number's just been going up, up, and up, and up, of more and more men just not having sex at all. And the number for women increased too, but it wasn't nearly as dramatic as for men, and it was lower. I think it was like 15% or 18%. And when I look at it and I ask why, and we all also seen it on Girls Chase, we look at, some traffic comes from Google search, and we see fewer and fewer guys are searching for things like how to ask a girl out, how to get a girlfriend, how to get a date, even terms like how to get laid have started going down. And we also see this rising cynicism from guys that will come onto the site and they'll be like, well, is it really even worth learning this stuff to get women? Like women, they're so entitled or whatever. And at the same time, you see it in the women's space. We've got friends in the, Matt, he's running a women's coaching company, and the women over there, the same thing. They're like, oh, is it worth learning this stuff to get guys? Guys, they're. So there's this cynicism on both ends. And we look at it, and I look at it, and I'm like, what is the reason for this? And a lot of it coincides very neatly with the rise of these dating apps. And I look at all the people that are on these dating apps, and all the people that I know that have the most bitter attitudes towards dating tend to be people that are almost exclusively on these apps. And I think especially for guys, I think it can actually be kind of an avoidance strategy, where the guy's thinking about going out to learn, okay, I'm going to go push myself to go out and make these approaches and start learning how to get girls. But man, that's a lot of work, and I go out and maybe I'll only even be able to do a few approaches. Maybe I won't have the courage to do any. If I go out, I get rejected. I'm going to spend hours doing this. I got to get dressed up. Why don't I just sit down on my phone and do some swiping for 15 minutes and do much swiping? And I think about, when I was learning, we had online dating, and you can go and do that, but you had to find a girl and then write a message to her and send that off. And there's not that many girls that you want to message, and there's a limited pool because not everybody's doing online dating. And so really, if I'm skipping going out to go talk to girls, and I'm going to be watching a movie or playing a video game or something, and I know that I'm avoiding meeting women. Whereas today, you can just go on the app and, I'm not really avoiding meeting women. Look, I'm swiping on my phone. I'm doing all this swiping, and I swiped on 200 women, so surely I'll get a match there, right? And then you match with a 6 or whatever, and she's coming over to, you get this. So I look at this and I'm like, it's objectively harder for guys to get themselves to go out and start learning girls with this online dating scourge or the apps. So what do you feel like if you got guys? What would you say to a guy right now that is watching who is someone who routinely falls back on apps instead of going out to meet girls, and probably knows objectively or has heard that he's going to get better results from going out, but it's just so much easier to just sit back and just do some swiping instead?
So what I tell them, I have some clients who were willing to, give it a try, or they were doing both, but I could see that it was interfering with their approaching. Burn the boats. You need to delete the apps. You go on your phone and you delete your apps right now. And if you're watching this, like, when you get motivated, you watch like an inspirational video on YouTube and you're like, yeah, and then like 10 minutes later, you totally forget. Like, if I say delete your apps and you go, well, like you feel any reaction that's like visceral, do it right now. Like, use that moment right now of me telling you, and it's true. Like, you're listening to this and you're like, yeah, I know it's true, but then you just don't do anything. You're like, yeah, that's a really good point, Hector. Oh, that's so smart. And then you don't do anything, and you forget about this interview like 5 minutes later. Hopefully you don't, but that's how memory works. Do it right now. Like, as you're listening to my voice that are speaking words right now, open your phone as I'm hypnotizing you, go to Tinder, hold it, press the X button if you're on iPhone, or on Android. I forgot how to do it on Android. But click the uninstall button or the delete button, and you're not allowed to have it back for 3 months. And in these 3 months, you're either going to be completely lonely, like you won't even have the figment of the imagination of approaching women through online dating. And that'll force you to go approach girls because you'll be so horny that you have no choice but to approach them. And you're also not allowed to jerk off. No jerking off and no online dating. Because I don't know about you guys. I'm a bit of a horn dog. Bro, I would spank the monkey just to the pictures of girls on Tinder sometimes because they're so sexy. Now, that might be TMI for some of you, but, I'm pretty raw with my information. But that also can take your motivation away. So no spanking the monkey, no porn, for 3 months, and no online dating. If that won't get you to go out and approach girls, your natural instincts will take over. At the end of the day, you're still a man. You got testosterone in your balls, okay? So delete the dating apps, get rid of them. You're only allowed to have dating apps if you're getting laid from some other source. They are only allowed to be an auxiliary source. And you will stop being bitter towards women because it feels like it's less of a rejection to not get that swipe, because it's not even a rejection. It's a ghost kind of. Like, well, she just didn't swipe right, but it's not like she swiped left on you, you fucking loser. It's not, what if the dating app sent you a message every time you got swiped left on, It just told you that you suck. It doesn't feel like a rejection, but it definitely is a rejection. It's 100% a rejection. You're just hiding from it, right? So you're being like, some people don't like the harsh sensei kind of approach, but I do. Like, you're being a pussy. You're being avoidant of genuine female interaction. Okay, so no matter what end of this like spectrum you're on, maybe you're the women ain't shit these days. They're all just bitches and hoes, and they just want validation and da 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 da. Okay, well, if you're going to make that argument towards women, like women aren't feminine anymore. Okay, well, what's the alternative? You're a masculine man. Yeah, you're a real man. Okay, go prove it. Like, you're a man? Okay, do what men do. Go take risks. Go approach them. And you'll change your mind very quickly in women. Like, I don't have these bitter attitudes towards women. Yes, there's a bunch of validation-seeking bitches. Yeah, but that same girl who's seeking validation will go suck Chad or Tyrone's dick, right? You believe that too, right? They're going to go hook up with the top 20% of men. Okay, well, how is that happening? Well, a lot of them are probably meeting them in real life because they're real men, right? So instead of just complaining about them, go be that real man who gets laid. Like, guys who get laid don't say the stuff that you say, right? And that isn't me trying to tell you like, oh, you're just a virgin, you're an incel. Like, I'm not trying to say that. I'm just trying to tell you that there's a reason you have these beliefs and these frustrations and these bitternesses. And if you get results, I promise you won't feel them. Especially because you do day game, you're going to meet a higher quality of woman, and they're going to make you change your mind on how good women actually are out there. And there's really great women out there. They're not perfect, they're not angels, but they're great. So delete your apps. Long story short.
All right.
I wouldn't have been on a soapbox there. Sorry.
Well, let's sum up. So you've got this course coming out, Meet Girls Everywhere. What's the date that premieres again?
July 17th.
Okay. So that's coming up. Can you tell me what guys are going to find inside the course roughly? So what can they expect?
Okay, so module 1, why day game is amazing. Module 2, like, should I just list out the modules? Like, just, is
Yeah,
that
sure.
table of
Sure.
contents? Okay.
I'm almost out of time, so we don't want to go too long.
Okay. All right. So module 1. Let's see if I can remember this too. Uh, why day game is amazing. Module 2, how to deal with approach anxiety. Module 3, fundamentals. Module 4, where to meet girls. The best places to meet women in my experience. 5, how to approach. Wait, there's one. No, wait. 5 is approach imitations. That's right. And then 6 is how to approach. And then I have 6.1 on how to do indirect openers. 6.2 on how to gauge the energy of which girl you should approach. And I split them into 2 different types of girls. The more like serious girls and the more like playful girls. How to have a conversation and then how to close. Advanced day game techniques, and I go over how to kiss a girl and pull her during the day. And the how to do the approach. I actually have videos of me working with a girl and showing you pretty close to how my approaches look and how the receptions go. And then if you do sign up for the first 4 days, you get 2 bonus modules. You get a schedule skipper, how to get girls to skip their schedule, and how to text girls as well. I give a texting bonus module. Yeah, I have 3 bonus modules. I forgot. How to text her. And then also I have a bonus module on hired guns, so girls who are working. So I think there was 13 modules. So you're going to see everything in there. I cover everything. Hopefully that's everything. I think it is.
Great. So, and we had a few guys go through this sort of as initial test group. I think it was like eight guys or so. So what was the reaction that guys had to the course? Was it good for them? Did they get some results from it?
Yeah, I think it was 8 or 10 or something like that. Yeah. Pretty good reactions, pretty good results. And I've gotten a lot of the same reactions from the guys who I do coaching. So the coaching that I do for day game is exactly what I do in Meet Girls Everywhere. It's just distilled into like a really small package. But the guys who did get my coaching day game or the Meet Girls Everywhere course, their results went up pretty high. Like one guy is an older guy and wanted to approach younger girls, and he didn't think it could happen, and he just hooked up with an 18-year-old like Instagram influencer and is kind of dating her. So he's a 44-year-old, like looks like a wizard basically kind of guy, like
And he met her through day game, right?
It was day game, yeah, 100%. He met her when he was at I think it was the mall. I think it was where he met her. Yeah.
Yeah, because you're never going to meet a girl like that on Instagram.
No, she's getting messaged by. She even told him, she's like, I get obviously hit up all the time, but are you going to be that one guy out of the 100,000 who are messaging her that she's going to give attention to and give the chance? Like, are your words so magnificent that she's just going to like be glued to the screen? Probably not, But he's like, if he messaged her over Instagram, she would like I said, like my client knows, like I'm not shitting on him. Like he knows he looks like a wizard. Like he's an older, hairy, 44-year-old Jewish guy, like super fuzzy hair, like looks like a wizard. But he's with this young, hot girl. Like it's such a mismatch that it wouldn't make sense. But because he came at her with that charisma that he comes with in person, that he could never replicate online, she sucked his dick.
So for guys who use the sign up link and they sign up to the launch list that we've got right here, so you got some free content for them inside. You were talking about the mirror video. So we got videos, newsletters, all that good stuff. Can you give me a hint about what guys get in that free video right away when they first sign up? The mirroring video that you were talking about earlier, I think.
Sure. So the mirroring video is about becoming self-aware of your fundamentals. So in the course, I teach fundamentals, but in this mirroring video, the first step is just being aware of your fundamentals, like actually getting out of the interaction and seeing yourself from a third person, as if you're watching yourself. So it teaches you how to become self-aware of your fundamentals, which is the first step to actually improving. So like awareness, then management. And so I give you some tricks to kind of hack your brain into becoming self-aware of itself while you're interacting with women.
Great stuff. All right, that's a wrap. So we covered a lot of great ground today. So I'm really excited to get this launched. I think it's going to be great for guys shaking off these lockdowns a lot of people were living under, getting back into swing things during summer. And, if they end up doing more lockdowns like they're talking about doing, and all the Davos crowd is talking about the other strains and talking about the cyber pandemic, it's going to be even worse. So it kind of seems like in some ways.
Quarantine. It's okay.
Yeah. Oh, even during quarantine.
Yep.
So I think it depends on the lockdowns. Like some of them, we know some people in France or the UK where it's just totally locked down. So for some people, it seems like it could be now or never if you want to learn game. So and other places it's been more open. But anyway, it seems like now is the time for a lot of different reasons that you want to get out there, start meeting some girls, maybe find one you really like to hold on to. And there's no better way to do this than day game. So it's been a great chat. Thanks for hopping on with me today, Hector.
I very much enjoyed it.
If you're viewing, make sure you sign up for Hector's launch list. So the freebies alone can change the game for you, and you're not going to want to miss the launch of Meet Girls Everywhere. So throw your email in below and get signed up now.